Welcome to episode one, the inaugural episode of Girls Who Recovered, the podcast. You are literally witnessing a dream come true. In my work as a transformational coach, I share with my clients that we create gorgeous blueprints of a vision for a life we love, and then the universe flings it at us. No hard work required. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to lay this offering at your feet, knowing that from my heart to yours, this is a dream come true for me. And I hope that it will be a gift to you as you move through your life. So, welcome to the first edition, the first episode of the Girls Who Recover podcast with me, Dana Hunter Fradella, your transformational life coach and founder of Girls Who Recover. When I started Girls Who Recover in my heart several years ago, I noticed something. And the first thing you need to know about me, besides I'm wild and wonderful, just like you, is that I am deeply active in the recovery movement. And I just celebrated 15 years of sobriety. This podcast is not about that. It's not about sobriety and it's not about recovery from substance abuse, but it's about a noticing that I had working in the world with women. So I'm one of three girls and a brother. Hey, bruh. And I majored in women's studies at school. I went to Vandy, go Doors. And I coached girls on the debate team, and I taught high school, and I led schools. And I've always felt called to work with and for women because I noticed something from a very young age, and it's that we settle. It's that we play small. And in my humble opinion, after 43 years of extensive research in one way and then the other, is that it's not our fault. It's not our fault that we're playing small. It's not our fault that we're settling. It is a part of the social fabric of the patriarchy, of the cultural landscape and quilt that we've woven as Western America. Western civilization. But this podcast is not about Western civilization or even America. It's about how do we work with what we've got to create lives that we absolutely love. And if you're a woman taking a breath right now, you are a girl who recovers. You don't have to be in recovery. You don't have to have had massive setbacks, although you're going to hear about mine and you're going to hear about women who've experienced massive setbacks with the intention of teaching the framework of transformation. How do you transform a massive, devastating, wild, and crazy setback into a gorgeous comeback that looks like a life you absolutely love, that looks like a life that takes your breath away? And so I'm already off script. I take these notes and then totally abandon them. But I want to know that you to know that the purpose of Girls Who Recover is to help women everywhere transform your biggest setbacks into your most gorgeous comebacks so that you can create and live into a life you absolutely love. A life filled with miracles and abundance and magic that you intentionally design and create for yourself because that is your birthright. That is your birthright. I heard that in church this week. That is our birthright. We were born with a creator, from a creator who intends that we have an abundant and prosperous life. But everywhere I look, I see women playing small. I see girls believing things like, I'm not good at math, or sports aren't for me, or I don't like guys, or whatever the small fake news it is that we're subscribing to that keeps us boxed in to smaller than we've been intended to. So that's the mission, to unbox, to unleash, to step out into a gorgeous life that we love. And how do we do that? How do we do that beyond the rhetoric of let's be inspired and new year, new me? And this podcast is set to launch early January, and you're probably hearing this, new year, new you, right? I'm here to tell you, you don't need a new year and you don't need a new you. You're perfect exactly the way you are. You were born perfect. You were born worthy. You are a perfect creation of the creator. As my mentor, Kathy Heller, says, you are a piece of the master, a masterpiece. You are some of the one, someone. You don't need a new year. You don't need a new you. You simply need to remember who and whose you are. And that is my mission on earth. because someone cared enough to do that for me. So who is this podcast for? If you're listening and you're a woman taking a breath right now, it's for you. It's designed for you to help you expand and evolve and remember who and whose you are, to come home to yourself. So that when you look at every corner and pocket of your life, you love it. You look around your love and relationships, you look around your career, you look around your family, you look around your home, you look around your creative expression, the impact you're making in the world. You look at your mind and your body and your spirit, your health and your wellness and your vitality. You look at your bank account and your calendar and your personal identity, and you say, I love this. I love my life, every nook, corner, and cranny. Every quadrant, every topic, every relationship. You were put here to love your life, to love it, not just settle for it, not just like it. We're here as creations of the Creator to love our lives. None of this is on my script. It's just coming out of the flow, which is why I'm so grateful that I took the direction, the divine download, that it's time to start a podcast for you who's listening. This podcast is for you. It's dedicated to the woman taking a breath right now who just needs to remember who and whose she is so that you can create a life you absolutely love. Is that you? Welcome. Welcome home. Why am I doing this? Well, I have a whole lifetime of setbacks, and I have a framework and experience and story after story of how to transform setbacks into comebacks, a model of transformation that not only have I experienced, but I've been educated and trained and certified in to share with my clients, my community, all the women I coach, and now you, dear podcast listener. I'm here to offer this as a gift at your feet if you care to have it. It's all yours. And I love the podcast platform because it's free and available for anyone. You don't have to pay high ticket coaching costs, although I'm here for that if you are available too. But you can access the principles of transformation. You can take a solid look at where you've been and the experiences that you've had, and you can follow the framework that I'll share in my solo episodes and my interview episodes, and follow that as a model to transform your setbacks into your most gorgeous comebacks in every area of your life. And if you are a woman taking a breath right now, you belong here. You are a girl who recovers, because can I get an amen for anybody who's had a setback? Anybody, a financial setback, a relationship setback, a health setback, a time setback, an identity setback, a confidence setback. Can I get an amen on a weekday from my friend Brendan Burchard? Yes, if you've experienced any sort of setback and you're curious about what does it take, what does it mean to live a life I absolutely love? Is that even real? Then yes, it is. This podcast is for you. So I want to tell you a little bit about me. I'm Dana Hunter Fradella. 43 has been the best year. I'm pretty sure I'm 43. Yes, I definitely stopped counting, but I'm going to tell you that the deeper in the 40s I get, the more magical my life is, because the less ups I give. Hence, welcome to the podcast. Totally unedited, totally imperfect, and we're here to have a blast, because I realize, thanks to gorgeous mentorship and coaches that I have on my team that support me in creating life I love and my dreams, that I've been taking life too seriously, and that life is meant to be a blast. It's meant to be a hot blast. Yes, it's messy. Yes, it's wild. Yes, it's crazy. Yes, it's chaos, but it's meant to be a blast. So let's have a blast, shall we? So you got me. You know how old I live in New Orleans. If you haven't been to the Big Easy, you need to schedule your trip right now. No matter what age you are, no matter what kids you have or don't have, everybody is welcome in the Big Easy. And guess what? We have an extra bedroom. Unless this podcast blows up, which it's going to, don't you know? But I want to invite you to join us in New Orleans, Louisiana. It is the most gorgeous city on earth. And I hope that I get to, if not in this episode, one that coming up sooner, about how I made New Orleans my home. It wasn't because I wanted to live in a fancy place. Let's just go ahead and get it out on the pavement. It's because I really liked to drink when I moved here. And this was the best place for young people who love to drink, New Orleans. And now that I don't drink, I want you to know it's still the most gorgeous, fabulous city in the world. Praise be recovery. So glad to be here. Because if not, I'd definitely be dead. Any other listeners who definitely should be dead right now? Just me? Nope. You too? Yeah. In fact, I should have started this podcast with, hey, I should be dead right now. I should be. Because late in the year of 2009, I wanted to kill myself. Suicide wasn't a notion. It wasn't an idea. It was a plan. It was a written plan. It was an intentional plan. And the one thing you should know about me is that when I make a decision and plan for it, it's done. It's a done deal. And so I should be dead right now, but I'm not. And I'm so glad I get to share this opportunity, this magic with you. And I want to tell you as much of my story as I can. Maybe not in this episode, but along the way in the journey. But I didn't start that way. I started as a really happy kid on a farm in Eastern Kentucky. I'm the oldest of four. We're all overperformers. We're all overachievers. We're all very smart. We had incredible parents, brilliant, lovely parents. And I came out of a household with a lot of love and a lot of ambition, and also, just like every other household I know, a lot of issues. And from that, I developed a sense of dis-ease, a sense of what's wrong with me, what's wrong with this. There was something wrong. And it started from a pretty young age, where I just had this sense of like, I don't belong. I don't feel good in my own skin, and things just aren't right. And so I don't, a lot of people in the recovery community and a lot of people in the spiritual community as well share the same narrative of I didn't feel right in my own skin. And for my experience was I started to develop what I call a hole in my soul. And it felt like an empty bucket, and it started in the heart center and went to the solar plexus and just felt like I couldn't ever feel okay. And I thought performing well at school worked sometimes. So I did really well at school, loved school, any type A's, any overachievers out there, anybody else out there who was like, oh my God, I have to get not just a 4.0, but how many AP classes can I take to get above a 4.0? Because then maybe I'll be okay. Maybe I'll be okay. Maybe then I'll be okay if I outperform and if I overachieve. And so I took all the AP classes and did all the extracurriculars in hopes that maybe that thing would make me, anybody, be okay. And there was this second version of me that was also developing, right? So version A is this young woman who's motivated and ambitious and high performing and successful. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm throwing up some air quotes. And then there was this other part of me that developed out of this idea that I'm not enough. And it's funny because I don't know if you've seen Inside Out 2, but if not, whether you have kids or not, if you need to see that movie. But that second personality, it's depicted so well in that movie. In that case, in her case, in Riley's case, it's anxiety. I don't even know that I was awake enough to know what it was, but it developed in tandem with this performer personality. And the second personality said things like, you're not good enough. You're not thin enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not sexy enough. Your legs are too fat. You're not good in making friends. Like you're a slut, like that second personality that really got stronger. And as I've learned more about psychology and transformational work, that we become who we feed, right? We become the voice of who we feed. So there was this one voice, and Inside Out 2, and even one depicts it so gorgeously. We become the voices that we feed. And so I continued to feed both sides. So I excelled at school, but in the meantime, started to make really poor decisions and hang out with not the best people and make decisions that my type A personality was like, don't do that, don't do that. And did things like tried some drugs and drank some alcohol and made bad decisions as a result of those two things. And then started to attach my identity to the boy who liked me or didn't, or the experience I could get or couldn't. And so when it came time for good decision making, I couldn't show up to the party. So I continued to make really bad decisions And so this relationship that I really wanted to be in, but couldn't stay faithful for, deteriorated, as it should have, because he was a gorgeous, amazing guy. But I really took that personally and made it mean that I was undeserving of anything, a good life, happiness, joy, because I had put all of my stake in superficial things, in people and places and things and feelings, instead of a real knowing of who and whose I am. So what that looked like was I continued to drink more and I started to starve myself. I started with trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. I started with throwing up because I was like, oh, I like to eat, right? Because food's great. New Orleans, by the way, is a great place if you love food. And then I thought, well, if I just throw it up, then I won't gain any weight and I'll be super skinny. But I'm also vain AF. Anybody else super vain? Yes, you are. That's why the beauty industry makes trillions of dollars. Anyway, so I wanted to be thin. I thought thin was best. And so I also didn't want to have the chemicals interfere with my teeth because I had braces and I like my straight teeth. And so I researched a better way. And so then I started to starve myself. And I found that to be effective because I could starve myself and nobody would really know. And I would pretend to eat or excuse myself. And then, if you have any experience with that or love somebody who has experience with that, it's really gnarly and it gets in your soul and it gets in your brain and it's hard. It's really, really hard to stop. So now there are three personalities. There's the achiever, there's the not good enough, and then there's the maybe if I try to control it in this way. And so the controlling and the achieving just continue to evolve. So I got into a very fancy school, go Doors. I definitely could not get into Vanderbilt today. Anyway, they accepted me and I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the school. I got in, I've got a great resume, I got a great GPA. I'm going to cut all my hair off. I'm going to change my wardrobe. I'm going to stop shaving my armpits and I'm going to go and be a new me, a new version of me, right? This is why I cannot stand new year, new me, because you don't need a new year and you don't need a new you. I tried it. You don't have to do it. I tried it for you. So I went to Vanderbilt. I tried to be a whole new me. I still did not fit right in my skin. The hole in my soul got bigger and to fill it. And so I continued to try to perform, but alcohol use and bad decisions got in the way of that. And so my performance even started to slack. And I kept trying to do things to perform, like, okay, I joined a sorority, like barely got into the sorority because I didn't have any social skills and also was drinking a lot and making poor decisions. And so thankfully, this gorgeous sorority invited me in and I loved my sisters there and I loved that experience. And I thought, well, if I could just be president, then I'll be okay. So there's this theme of if I could just get to the top, if I can just perform, then I'll be okay. And in the meantime, boy after drinking after drinking after bad decision after bad decision, and I'm at the end of the experience, I'm barely hanging on. I really had it in my arsenal that I was going to be an attorney. That was a part of my identity. By the way, I'm so grateful I did not turn out to be an attorney because that seems really boring now that I look at it closely. God bless my attorney friends. A lot of my personal one-on-one clients are attorneys. You're lovely and also prove that that is not for me. No logic here. It doesn't work for me. I'm more of an imaginative, a dreamer, and I go with what's impossible versus what's logical. So if you like that, stick around. We're going to have more magic. And but I thought like if I'm an attorney, then I'll be okay. But the problem is that I had alcoholism. And if you don't know this about alcoholism, it only gets worse. It never gets better. And there's really nothing that you can do if you love somebody except for encourage that person to get help, to get treatment, to get in recovery, to please Lord, get in a 12-step program or whatever works. There's not one way, but my preference is a 12-step program because that's what worked for me, and to invite them in. But I didn't have that language. I really had cut off people. I was not listening to anybody that gave me negative feedback. And at the end, when I was studying for the LSAT, I was also drinking at the same time, and I didn't like the material. And so when I showed up to take the LSAT, it did not go well, as you can imagine. As you can imagine, it did not go well. So without telling you the whole story, but I will soon in another episode, I diverted and I went plan B, which was teach for America because it was competitive. They were so incredible. They came on campus. They were like, you would be amazing. They went through this really intense interview process, and I loved it. I loved the competitiveness. I loved the process. I loved the idea that I could get up and be the Michelle Pfeiffer of my time, which, if you haven't seen Dangerous Minds, I'm definitely dating myself and I do not care. Go watch Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds, because that's literally who I thought I was. So they invited me to come and teach for them in Baltimore. So I went to Baltimore City, graduated with my degree, barely hanging on. And I moved with this gorgeous man who, man, I just like all these gifts that were given to me that I totally destroyed. But I moved with this gorgeous man. We went to Baltimore. I'm teaching for America. And then I'm in the classroom and I feel like, oh, I found my people. I found my calling. I got a high school students. I'm slaying the day. I'm mentoring new teachers that are like 5 minutes newer than me. And I'm just feeling like, oh, I've arrived. A new job, new state, new me, right? So instead of whatever I was trying to do at Vandy, the first couple of years, I was trying to be a hippie. Like, I don't know what that was about. And then I was a sorority and like maybe. And then I was a Michelle Pfeiffer wearing leather to my high school classroom. And it was funny because I taught French. So I was like yelling at the kids in French, and that scared them. And so it worked for classroom management. And so I had this gift, but what I also had was, now I had active alcoholism. And then the middle of that, I have these personalities that are growing, the performer who's great at teaching, and now the drinker who's good at drinking. And I'm trying to juggle all this. And man, if you've ever had alcoholism or substance abuse, you know that the balls are ultimately going to drop. And before they did, I was invited to be in a leadership path, a school leadership path, which by that time had been my dream, because I thought, this is my MO always. I would get where I was and I'd look all the way at the top and I would say, how fast can we get there? And then there's this voice that said, and then maybe we'll be okay. And I was not awake to that. It's only in reflection. So I looked at the principal's office and I was like, I definitely could be a principal. I could definitely do a better job than that dude, the whole theme of my life. And so I went for it, and I was invited at a very young age to be in school leadership. And as I was approaching my training, I remember calling my dad and being like, Dad, I'm going to be a principal. I'm going to get my master's degree and lead a school one day, and it's going to be amazing. And he said, baby, you can do whatever you want to do. And I loved my dad because he was always encouraging and he was always believing. And he also got sober from active alcoholism by that time. And he was my person. My dad was my person. Any other? Can I get an amen if your dad was your person? And I just loved him so much because he really did unconditionally believe in me, supported me. He never said, you're making a bad decision. He never chastised me. He never judged, because he knew when you have what we have, there's nothing you can say except for I love you and point you in the right direction. And so I remember this phone call. He was very supportive. And I'm in this leadership track and I'm on my way to becoming a school principal. And he comes to my master's graduation. I went to Johns Hopkins, very fancy, right? Because I thought if I was fancy, then I would be okay. If I have a fancy resume, then I'll be okay. If I chase that degree, if I get a 4.0, which I did, I used to tell people like, oh, I got a 4.0 from Johns Hopkins, because in my heart, I'm like, I'm finally getting my stuff together. And so people can't call me out on the other things I'm doing, like drinking way too much, making terrible decisions, not taking great care of my body. Anyway, my dad came up to attend my graduation. I couldn't even make the graduation because, I'm going to put some air quotes up, I had food poisoning, which maybe it was food poisoning because my immune system was so shot from all the drinking I was doing. Who knows? And I couldn't attend. We even went on the way and we had to turn around. So I said to him, Dad, I'm so sorry, I'm not feeling well. Wake me up before you go tomorrow so I can give you a hug. And of course, he didn't, because that's not what we do. We don't talk about feelings, and we don't say goodbyes, and we don't do any of the emotional stuff. Anybody? Anybody else not do the emotional stuff? Definitely something that I have acquired. It's a skill that has taken me coaching and therapy and mentorship and support structures to even say I am feeling. I just said that to one of my daughters yesterday. I was like, I am feeling angry that you hit me. And that still felt very scripted, but that's okay. It worked. And now I'm a woman who expresses her feelings in front of her girls. So feel really proud of that. Anyway, he did not wake me up. And the next time, I heard from my dad was actually a phone call from my sister who told me that my dad had died unexpectedly of a heart attack. And it was the most devastating day of my whole life. I've had many a devastating day. I've made really terrible decisions and then had to wake up to them. But in all of the 43 years of my life, and if I could pick one single day to rewrite or to eliminate or to rebuild completely, it would be that day, July 24th, 2025. And I got that call from my sister, who we weren't talking on the phone because I was so good at isolating and so good at cutting people out. So when she called, I still have PTSD, even though my relationships are right now. When people I love call me, I'm like, okay, what's wrong? What's the thing? Because of this phone call. And she called and she said, your dad's dead. And I've drew the floor. And I mean, just trauma, just devastating, bawling on the floor. The worst day of my whole life. And I won't go any more deeply into that experience, except for to tell you that that hole in my soul cracked wide open and I stopped caring. I stopped caring about where I was headed, and I stopped caring about separating the two personalities, and I stopped caring about how much I was drinking. And in fact, I started to drink on purpose and in force. And I pulled back every obstacle and every baby gate that I had held against drinking too much or showing face in front of the wrong people. And I just started to drink on purpose and without reserve. And I just stopped caring. And so fast forward, I did get a school leadership position. It was the school of my absolute dreams. I was a very young white woman principal in the middle of Baltimore City. So it was my dream job. It was my dream job. And I remember walking down the halls being like, I made it. And why do I still hate myself? I have the keys to the dream. And why does it still feel like I'm dead inside? I love those kids and I love those teachers and I love that work so much. And it was like the top, the apex of my career, the pinnacle of my personal mountain. And I felt like I was dead inside. And what I've learned about recovery is that, oftentimes we do things like stop feeding ourselves or drink or drug way too much or self-harm or whatever in order just to feel something, because inside I just felt dead, like there was nothing left to feel alive for. And so I'm sad to say that that situation did not work well and did not work out well for me. 100% my own fault. And I landed in the middle of New Orleans as a result. The story's a little bit longer than that, but I got here on a Google search. And by that time, the internet was in full force, although praise God, social media was not a thing. So there's very little evidence of all the debauchery, at least on social media. It's definitely there. I'll definitely share some of it with you. But suffice to say, I lost that job. I lost my house. I lost my pride. I lost my dignity. And the only thing left was a Google search and one last move to New Orleans. And when I got here, it took 6 months, what had taken a decade prior, and I burned my whole life down. Burned it down. And so in December of 2009, on the encouragement of my incredible mom, who I'm so surprised she would even pick up the phone for me, because I was the worst kid from the get, the worst, disrespectful, lying, cheating, stealing, terrible, horrible. But God bless moms. Now I am one. So, that's a lot. Maybe we'll unpack that in another episode. But my mom suggested that I might go to the 12-step program where my dad went because it worked for him. My dad died a sober man, 13 years, and he died of a heart attack playing golf, his most favorite thing in the world, next to hanging out with his kids. And so I went, and let me tell you, I did not want to go. It was not the sexiest place on earth. I really tried to avoid having alcoholism. I really tried to avoid any sort of support or help, because I've learned that women like me don't ask for help. We don't need help. We're supposed to be able to figure it out, do it all on our own, and help feels like a dirty word. So I went to this 12-step meeting. And after lots of bumps and making more poor decisions, I ultimately did get sober for good. I'm going to call it for good on December the 18th of 2009. So 15 years. But again, this podcast and my story isn't about recovering from alcoholism. It's transforming all the setbacks that you heard into this life that I get to live now, much of which was facilitated by active participation in that 12-step community. And the work that I do now is to take that foundational recovery and to continue to up level, to continue to expand, to continue to transform good to great, okay to gorgeous, and to stop settling in the middle of deep recovery, because this is what I see. And I saw it in the classroom, and I saw it in the sorority, and I saw it in the teachers that I led, and I saw it in the sports that I played, and I saw it in the debate team that I led, is that girls are playing small. And I still see it even deep in the middle of recovery. Women settling for relationships that are terrible, for partners that are toxic, for jobs that do not light us up, for careers that are not aligned with our purpose, but have us entangled in the golden handcuffs, which is where I was not long ago. I had a great job that I did not love, and I made a ton of money doing work that was just okay. And I couldn't live with myself. And I see us doing that. I mostly see it because I did it. Being in relationships that didn't honor or appreciate or love us. Pursuing careers or making decisions with our time and our money that do not honor who we're here to be and what we're here to do. Not taking care of our mind and our body and our spirit in favor of whatever the thing of the day is. I was a longtime smoker. I'm so happy to be free of that. And I've learned that I don't have to settle for my health, and neither do you. And I don't have to settle for an okay relationship or an okay marriage, and neither do you. And I don't have to settle for a career that may pay well, but that does not light me up inside, and neither do you. And I don't have to settle for overwhelming debt or small financial goals, or in a life that feels really small, and neither do you. And I don't have to attach myself to working 60 or 80 or 100 hours a week, like that was modeled for me and maybe many for you. This idea, this false belief that if I just work harder, then I'll be okay. If I just work harder, then I'll make enough money. If I just work harder, then I'll make it. That's settling. That's not true. That's a narrative of the patriarchy. And I'm here to offer you another alternative that's based in ease, that's based in love, that's based in a slower pace. Because what I've learned is God, the universe, the spirit, your creator, whatever you're calling it, manifests at the pace of ease. There is no hustle. There is no grind. There is only ease in the language of transformation. Yeah, you can get stuff done if you work really hard, and then you wonder why you're having meltdowns on the floor. So here we are, 15 years in, and I have had these constant wake-up calls, spiritual experiences, spiritual awakenings, that good is good and great is available. Great is good and phenomenal is available. And what I've learned since I started studying the principles of transformation, the laws of the universe, somebody put a book in my hand way back in 2006, maybe it was even a little earlier, 2005, called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. Anybody have The Secret? Anybody got their copy? I guess that was 20 years ago almost. And this woman's name was Soraya, who I hope one day will listen to this podcast. Soraya gave me this book because she knew that I had big dreams and that I was open to spiritual principles. And I was very excited. She said, read this book. It changed my life. And I did. And I learned about a very first law of the universe, the law of attraction. And I used that book to create some things that I desperately wanted in my life, that job being one of them, that relationship that I was in being one of them. But the problem with the laws of the universe is you got to feel good and act in alignment with your with the most integral version of yourself, a woman with integrity, a woman with peace, a woman with joy, a woman with honesty. And alcoholism kills all that. Depression kills all that. And we can't live a double life and expect gorgeous full spectrum results. So yes, I was able to manifest, and I did see the law of attraction work, but I couldn't ever figure out how to get it to work consistently because I was too busy feeding that second side of my personality, which would block it. It constricted my dreams, and it prevented me from being able to manifest and create and design a gorgeous life that I love. But since then, I have been attuned to, interested in, and excited about the laws of the universe. And so even though I pursued a career in education, and ultimately after I got sober, I rebuilt that career. I had my own consulting company. I was coaching principals and superintendents and consulting for big firms and coaching schools of teachers, and was able to rebuild my career as an educational consultant before I went to a corporate, which I thought might be fun. It was fun people there. And but what I found was I was less interested in rebuilding of the woman that I used to be. I thought, well, maybe if I could just be a principal again, or maybe if I could just be a vice president, or even a, whatever, work my way up the ladder, whatever it was. I was CEO of my own consulting company because I love working for me. I feel like I'm a great boss. Anybody else? But I thought there was something inside of me that said, we're ready for something new. We're ready for something new. We're ready for something new. And I kept asking, what is it? Well, a couple of years ago, I got the direction. As a part of the 12-step community, the foundation of the work is helping others. And so I've had the gift of mentoring hundreds of women. And that started from in high school, extracurriculars, in college, and my work with sorority and volunteering and tutoring as a sorority president and leadership and teaching, mentoring girls in my classroom, mentoring new teachers on my team, as a principal, mentoring women on the most people that work in schools are women, so that was a bonus, and on and on and on. And then more women in recovery, mentorship of women. And so that's my jam. That's my jam, is helping women remember who they are. Full disclosure, my kids came home and rang the doorbell a bajillion times, and my dog was barking and her collar was beeping. And so I completely lost my place. But I want to close today's episode by offering you an invitation to come along this ride with me. Every other week, I'll drop a solo episode. Every other week, we'll have an interview with another woman who's transformed her setbacks into comebacks. And along the way, you are going to learn the framework, the principles, and the tools of transformation so that you know how to look at any setback that you've experienced, any issue in your life, and apply this framework and these principles to transform it into a gorgeous, not just a comeback, but a miracle. And that's my work in the world, is to help women generate abundance and miracles on repeat, especially women who've experienced setbacks, frustrations, mistakes, anybody who feels shame or like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or whatever, any woman taking a breath, basically, and to lead you on this journey of remembering who you are, to help you design and live into a life that you absolutely love, that takes your breath away. And so that's our journey. I will introduce you into the principles. I'm going to introduce you to some gorgeous, incredible women. And together we will build, transform, and create a life that takes your breath away. I am so excited. I'm so grateful to have you on this journey. And I'm going to sign off today's inaugural, very first Girls Who Recover episode with a sincere thank you for being here. A sincere thank you for taking this journey with us, with me. A sincere thank you for showing up for yourself. And a question I want to leave you as we sign off our very first Girls Who Recover episode is, you might grab a journal, you might grab your favorite colored pen. I've got my blue and my purple here. And as we begin this new year or this new day or this new week, whenever you're listening to, I'd love for you to consider the question, what would you love? What would you love? And you can look at your whole life. What would you love in health and wellness? What would you love in relationships? What would you love in career and creative expression? What would you love for your finances and your time and your home and your freedom and your health and your wealth and your environment? What would you love? And I invite you to put on some chill music or rest in the silence. Invite in the creator of the universe. Invite in the spirit that beats your heart for direction. Take a few deep breaths in and start writing, because on this journey, we are collaborating and partnering to create a life that you love. And so the very first step in doing that is answering the question, what would you love? What would you love? And I'd love to hear your feedback on this episode. I want to invite you to rate and review. I also want to invite you to reach out to me. If you have a love note or some feedback or a question that you'd love to share to have it answered on the podcast, my email address is girls.who.recover@gmail.com, and I will answer you directly. So any love notes, any feedback that you have, any questions that you'd love to have answered on the podcast, you can email me, girls.who.recover@gmail.com. And I'm going to sign off, answer that question before you listen to the next episode. What would you love? And if you haven't heard it today, I want you to receive it. Take a breath, open your heart, and receive this message from my heart to yours. I love you. I'm so proud of you. And I believe in your ability to create a gorgeous life you love. Welcome to Girls Who Recover. Mwah.